Hey everybody, welcome back to Pediatric Therapy Essentials. My name is Dr. Heather Sossaman and I'm a pediatric physical therapist. Well, in this week's episode, we're going to dive into the topic of executive function, so stick around. Hey everybody, and welcome back. Well, if you're new around here, thank you so much for stopping by, and if you've been here before, I appreciate you coming back. Well, as I said, in this week's episode, we're going to talk about the topic of executive function. And I think right now in the era of online schooling and all of these new stressors that kids are having to deal with, understanding executive function is more important than ever. And if we look at the definition of executive function, we find that it is defined as the group of complex mental processes and cognitive abilities like working memory, impulse inhibition, and reasoning that control skills like organizing tasks, remembering details, managing time, and solving problems, all of which are required for goal-directed behavior. In other words, executive function is a set of thinking skills that we develop over time that allows us to both control our behavior and achieve our goals. Now, these skills are controlled by the area of our brain known as the frontal lobe, and more specifically, the prefrontal cortex, which is located, as the name would suggest, in the front of our brain. Now, this area of our brain, believe it or not, is not fully developed until our third decade of life. So that means that mastering and acquiring these executive function skills takes a lot of time and practice and goes well into young adulthood. There are lots of different skills that fall under the umbrella of executive function. But today I'd like to go over the 11 most common with you and then give you some simple ideas to try at home to work on these skills with your kiddo. So let's dive in. So the first skill is working memory. And that's our brain's ability to hold information for the short term and manipulate it. So that would be sitting in class and listening to your teacher give a lecture, be able to keep that information in your head long enough to manipulate it and write it down in your notes. Or if you're having a conversation with somebody, while you're listening to what they're saying, you're able to keep that information in your brain and then use it to respond to what they're saying when they're finished. Next is emotional control. And this is our ability to control our emotions so that we can again complete a task or achieve a goal. Now, as infants, we have absolutely no emotional control, right? We cry when we need something and we expect the adults in our life to calm us and quiet us and control our emotions. But as we grow and get more experienced and get older, we learn to control those emotions so that when we go in the grocery store and mom says we can't have that candy bar in the checkout line, we don't have a full-blown tantrum. Or when we're having a conversation with somebody and they say something we don't like, we don't yell and scream and get upset. Third is impulse control, and sometimes that's called inhibition. So that's our ability to control our natural reactive behaviors in order to, again, complete a task or achieve a goal. So for a young child, that might look like walking into their bedroom in search of a specific toy and being able to inhibit or not play with everything else in the room so they can simply go pick up the toy they're looking for. For an older child, it could be sitting in the classroom, knowing the answer to a question and not blurting it out, but waiting to be called on by your teacher. For an adult, it might be resisting that chocolate cake when our goal is weight loss. Number 4 is attention. So that one's pretty self-explanatory, right? It's our ability to stay focused on a task long enough to complete it. But when we're talking about attention, we really have to take into account how old a child is. So the older a child gets, the longer attention span we can expect of them. And there's lots of information about there regarding how long we think a child should be able to pay attention. And I don't have any research to back this up. This is simply my opinion, but the formula that makes the most sense to me is to multiply a child's age by 2 to 3 minutes. And as a parent and therapist, that seems to be reasonable and what I've seen in my practice. So if a child's 2, they should be able to pay attention for 4 to 6 minutes. But also we have to consider if the task is novel or interesting, or if it's something that they don't want to do. So a child's going to pay much more attention to a new toy that's fun and interesting, as opposed to brushing their teeth or cleaning their room. Number 5 is planning. So that's our ability to set a goal and then create a plan or path to get to that goal. And the important part of planning is our ability to prioritize which tasks need to be done right now and which ones can wait. Number 6 is time management, and this involves understanding how long it takes to complete a task, so estimating time, and then allowing the appropriate amount of time to complete it. With time management comes balancing the things that we want to do right now with the things that we need to do to stay on our time plan. Number 7 is task initiation, or actually beginning the task. And for many of us, this is the most difficult part of task completion, and it's something that we really have to practice and work on to be able to do. Number 8 is organization. So that's having a system for where your belongings are and then following through to be sure that you keep putting them back in the same place. This allows you to find your materials and information whenever you need to use them. Number 9 is problem solving, and that's pretty self-explanatory, right? It's looking at a problem and figuring out the best way to solve it and then following through. Number 10 is flexibility, or sometimes known as shift. And this is our ability to deal with unexpected situations and switch between tasks. So if we're in the classroom and it's time to end one subject or move out of one center and into another, that we can do that. Or if an unexpected situation comes up, like a fire alarm, can we stop what we're doing and shift our attention to this new task? And finally, we have metacognition. So this is our ability to look at all of our skills and our plans and organizations and all those things we're doing and decide, are these working? Are they effective, or do I need to change something? Now, I realize that was a lot of different skills for you guys to take in. And remember that everything we talk about today will be over on my website, pediatrictherapyessentials.com, if you need to go back for a review. But I think the big take-home message for executive function skills is to look at them as the skills kids need to be functioning adults in our society, right? In order to go to the grocery store and buy groceries, cook for ourselves, pay our bills, and manage all the adult things that we have to manage, kids really need a good handle on these skills, which is why it's so important for us to help them learn. Now, there are some very simple ways that we can work on executive function skills with our kids, and they're not boring, they're actually pretty fun. The first one is board games. So games like Chutes and Ladders, Candyland, and Trouble. These games teach kids emotional control. So can I play this game and maybe not win, and control my emotions and not get upset? They teach us inhibition. Can I learn to wait my turn and not just jump in and take a turn when it's not mine? They teach attention. So can I focus long enough to play the whole game? As well as problem solving. Can I figure out how to win? Next, we have card games like Uno, Go Fish, or Memory, or action games like Simon Says. And these games are great for working on our working memory because they require us to hold information in order to play the game. Then we have puzzles, and puzzles are really great for younger kids who may not be able to play board games yet, but they teach a lot of the same skills. So they teach emotional control. Can I try to get this puzzle piece in even if it doesn't really want to fit and not lose my control and get really upset when I shouldn't? It teaches them problem solving. Can I figure out which piece goes in which hole? And it also works on attention. Next, we have those higher skills like planning, organization, time management, task initiation. And these skills especially become evident and important when kids start school. So the simplest ways you can start to work on these skills is to have a family calendar, right? Show children how we write down all the things our family does in this one place and that we check it to see where we need to be and when. And as kids get into school age, they'll more than likely have some sort of planner at school. So be sure to reinforce whatever plan the teacher is using to have kids check off their homework and make sure that it's done each day. Maybe they have their spelling words in there and there's a test on Friday. So learning that we need to start studying on Monday and not Thursday night is a really good way to do that. As kids get older and they have more responsibilities and their academic load is higher, then they need some different tools that can accommodate this new amount of responsibility. And in a couple weeks, I'm gonna do an entire video on some simple ways that we manage that in my household with a bunch of teenagers. So look forward to that. So teaching these skills like organization, planning, task initiation, and time management can be very difficult for parents. They require a lot of consistency, and they require a pretty good investment of time for you to set up a system that works. But remember that any time you invest will definitely be repaid later on as your child becomes more independent. So some simple tips for you are when you're creating an organization system, have your child participate. Let them be invested in the process and in the system. Make it simple. Use things like clear containers with labels or picture cards that make it really easy for kids to know where things go. Have simple routines in your day, right? Do a few of the same things every morning before we get up and go to school, and every night before we go to bed. These simple activities may not seem like much, but over time they will really help your child's executive function skills improve. So the last little tip I want to give you about executive function skills is to remember when you teach them to use what's called a scaffolding approach. So that means providing a child with a lot of support in the beginning, right? So we might break the task down into small chunks. We might give them lots of verbal reminders, visual reminders, do it with them a few times. But as they get more proficient and have lots more practice, then we slowly want to wean out our support so that eventually they can become independent. And this is hard, and it can be very frustrating as a parent to do this, because I know I'm guilty myself. It's often faster and easier to just do it yourself. But if we're trying to really teach kids how to be independent adults, we've got to start letting them figure these things out, maybe make a few mistakes so that they can eventually be independent. Now, as you can imagine, there are medical conditions that can impact a child's executive function skills. Those conditions are things like autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and cognitive disabilities. And in next week's episode, we're going to explore ADHD and how it impacts executive function skills, so make sure you stick around for that one. Well, I hope you guys learned something new and helpful today about executive function. If you have any other games or ideas or activities that can help us teach executive function skills, please leave them in the comments section below so that we can share them with everyone. I'm sure you guys have tons of great ideas out there. And remember that if there's anything you saw today you want more information about, pop over to my website, pediatrictherapyessentials.com, and check out the blog post that goes along with today's video. Well, thank you so much for stopping by. If you enjoyed today's video, remember to give it a thumbs up and share it with someone else that you think it might help. If you're new to this channel and you like this video and you want more like it, please be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications. Well, I hope each and every one of you has a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you next Saturday. Bye!